Please be seated. Veuillez vous asseoir.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mr. Witness.
Good afternoon, Mr. President.
I give immediately the floor back to the office of the prosecutor for his questioning. Mr. Garcia, yours the floor.
Thank you, Your Honor. Alors, rebonjour, Monsieur le témoin.
Good afternoon, Mr. Witness. Just before we took the break, you were talking to us about your trip to Yopougon, where there was need to find a representative, where a certain Pastor Gami was a candidate. What happened ultimately?
En fin de compte,
Answer. Ultimately, there was a democratic election during which the youth elected me.
Simplement pour qu'on soit clair à...
Question. Just to be clear on that point, I think you already mentioned it, but the people, the youth you're talking about, were those only the youth from the West, from your region, or were there other youth participating in that election? Answer. From the Tongpi region. Question. Who was elected? Answer. Myself.
Simplement qu'on puisse...
Question. To help us understand the situation better, when you were elected as the representative, what would that involve? What were your duties as the representative?
écoutez, si
Answer. Well, when one is selected to take charge of the youth in Tomki area, it means that this person would be the one managing the youth in relation to President Gbagbo's campaign. And he would work in agreement with the national campaign manager, Mr. Charles Blegude, as the case was then.
Est-ce que la volonté...
Question. Those who elected you on that day, was their desire respected? Or their will, was it respected? Answer, no.
Expliquez-nous pourquoi.
Question. Explain to the court why.
écoutez,
Well, after I was selected by the youth of Tongpi, "20 to 30 minutes thereafter, and before Charles arrived, since he was not there when all that was taking place, Mr. Guei, Jean-Claude, his representative, arrived with some of his friends of the COGEP bureau, but I knew whom I didn't know, but I knew Guei very well. So I saw him, and he came to tell me that he had come to announce that Mr. Yaké is true, that he has won the elections. But he said, and these are his words, I didn't hear his chief say it himself, but that his chief had decided to appoint a supervisor over and above Mr. Yaké Evariste. Well, that is what happened, and it immediately led to anger and disapproval from the youth. They said, we already have a campaign director. How is it that you are now introducing a supervisor in our region, who was, by the way, a dean in our region and whose name was Blé Maurice? He's also one of our in-laws, and he was not a young person. He was an elder. For that reason, the youth wanted to demonstrate their anger, but I said no. I told them no. I said, well, let's wait for Charles, and that in any event doesn't change my intrinsic value. So let us wait for him and tell him directly when we see him, rather than continue to complain here.
Alors, avant de continuer,
Question. Mr. Blé Maurice, before we proceed, did he belong to any particular political party? Answer. He was a transporter and a transit agent, but he had created a movement in our area known as GNKB.
que veulent signifier ces lettres?
What does that stand for? GNKB means in our mother tongue, not in French, Angwanga Yakuba Odang means Gbagbo Nue Kwaba, meaning Gbagbo, thank you for all that you are doing for us. GNKB in the Yakuba language means Gbagbo Nue Kwaba, meaning Gbagbo, thank you for all what you are doing for us.
Et quel était l'objectif?
Question. What was the goal or the mission of that GNKB? Answer. The GNKB, like Kulma, GMG, GMG, JNG, and Kulma, they had as its purpose to promote development activities in support of President Laurent Gbagbo. That is why in our mother tongue we said, thank you for all what you have done for us, Mr. President. That is what it meant.
Et cette personne qui a été...
Now that person, Blé Maurice, who was selected to become the supervisor, now when you compare his speech with yours, what type of a person would you say he was? Answer. First of all, he was not a youth. And I told you that he was my uncle, my in-law. He is the elder brother to my mother, and there's a relationship in there. And this happened in 2006, and we would refer to such a person in our African language as a dean or a senior citizen, someone who is not of our generation. Question. You said then at some point to wait for Charles to arrive. Did he come? Did he show up? Answer. Yes, at some point he showed up, and that's when I met him. Question. When he arrived, what did he tell you? Answer. Well, there was a group of people. Then we went to his office. He greeted me and I greeted him. And then he told me, okay, congratulations. And we were not just two of us. There was a group of people there. And so he was receiving people at the COGEP. He greeted me and said, congratulations. And he said, get to work.
Pas donné, puisque nous étions du monde. Et
So, well, I was hoping, I didn't get the time to, I was hoping to have a one-on-one with him in relation to the campaign, and thinking that I was the one with whom he had to collaborate in the Tongpi region. Well, he simply greeted me, said congratulations, and then said, I'll see you. And that was it.
Mais dans les faits,
Question. In matter of fact, did you subsequently have a supervisor, or were you acting all or individually, so to speak? Answer. As a matter of fact, I was not the one who should have been the one in place, according to my understanding, because thereafter I did not have any opportunity to attend any meetings or to receive any instructions or anything whatsoever. So I reported to my boss, Dr. Franck Guei, accordingly, and he told me, well, you're already quite busy with me, and I'm going to call the Gilbert Blé-Lenné, the departmental campaign manager, that is the one who was in charge of the entire campaign effort for men, women, and youth in Tongpi. The DDC, the divisional campaign manager, Minister Blé-Lenné, he said he was going to call him.
est-ce que le superviseur est resté en place par la suite?
Did the supervisor remain in that position thereafter? Answer, yes. He remained in that position because when we went to Mang, I did not have, well, I was an empty vessel, a divisional coordinator only by name, but he remained in place. And when we went to Mang, the Dr. Frank had told me that, rather, my boss Franck Guei had found a vehicle for me. The DDC had provided me with some T-shirts bearing President Laurent Gbagbo's pictures, and all of that was part of the campaign effort. So I went to Mang, and when I got to Mang, I was there in Mang. I had just entered the town, and opposite the 11 Hotel in Mang, I almost lost my life to the supporters of my adversary at the time. They burnt my car, and I simply survived thanks to the intervention of some individuals.
Alors, je veux retourner sur cette question.
Question. Let me return to this issue of the supervisor. After the supervisor remained in position, did you continue to enjoy the support of Charles Blé Goudet?
Non.
Answer. No, clearly not.
Et quelle a été votre réaction?
Answer. What was your reaction? Answer. My reaction, as I said, I informed my boss, I told the youth who supported me, and I told them that in any event, we had only one goal. Our goal was to get our champion, President Laurent Gbagbo, to win. So I was ready to work with Dr. Franck Guei, my boss, to obtain all the necessary gadgets and whatever was needed. So there was no need to fight, but rather to focus on the goal, because the doctor had always said, my boss had always said, that it was important for us to win in our department or in our division, so that the president can indeed grant our requests for the development of our region.
Question par rapport à cette fonction de super.
A question regarding the supervisor. Did the supervisor receive any funds for the purpose of running the campaign?
Écoutez,
Answer. Well, when you talk about a campaign, there is a budget. And obviously, there are gadgets and all types of items that are used in running a campaign, including vehicles, transportation, posters, rally events, sound systems. It's a whole gamut of items that are used to promote the ideals that are being sold to the population, so to speak, in order to get them to win, to vote for our candidate, President Laurent Gbagbo. Now, if I understand your answer, the supervisor therefore received some funds for running the campaign. Is that correct? Answer, I was no longer in the network, and I do not know what the logic behind all of that was. I was no longer in the network, but the campaign was going on. Question, did you personally receive any funds from Mr. Gbagbo for the campaign after that point in time? Answer, after the 16 motorbikes and the 500,000 that was handed over, I did not receive any other money from Mr. Charles Gbagbo. When a supervisor was installed and the youth didn't support him, I went back to join my boss, Dr. Franck Guei, who gave me a vehicle, who gave me the gadgets, as I mentioned, which made it possible for me and my youth to work, because our purpose was to get our champion to win. That's it. Question. Well, let me now...
Si vous êtes en mesure de nous le dire à votre connaissance, pourquoi?
Now, can you tell us, if you know, why it was that Mr. Charles Gbagbo no longer supported you?
Financièrement.
Financially, I mean.
je ne saisis pas la question.
I don't understand your question.
Si vous le savez, évidemment, votre
Question. As far as you know, do you know why Mr. Charles Gbagbo no longer provided you with financial support? Answer. Well, because I was probably not his choice, and because there was a supervisor in place, and because I had somewhat withdrawn from them, and I had gone back to my starting point, and I was working with my boss, Dr. Franck Guei. Furthermore, I wasn't someone who was given to being easily submissive, because in any event, I was his elder. I had a conflict with Mr. Guei, not with Mr. Charles, on this very matter. And I clearly reminded him that Charles was my junior brother and that he was not my boss, but that I was probably his external collaborator, because my boss was Dr. Franck Guei. I reminded them of that. Question. Can you tell us a little more about this clash that you had with him? Answer. I told you already that I had come to see him at home at the Millionaire. And I was asked to wait outside as if I hadn't booked an appointment with him. I told Ms. Guei that I had an appointment, not with Mr. Charles, but with Mr. Charles rather, and now I've been asked to wait outside, and I don't understand that. Give me a seat somewhere at least. And well, Mr. Guei didn't appreciate that, and he said, if that's what you're saying, and so on and so forth, I've told you that the boss is not here. And I told him, the person you're talking about is not my boss. Things have to be very clear. I was sent on a mission, and I'm coming back to report. The basic measure of respect that can be extended to me is that I be given at least a seat, not that I be asked to stand out in the open, and I'm expected to wait, not knowing at what time your boss will show up. Well, there you have it.
Alors, je veux qu'on parle maintenant.
Question. Let us now talk about the election campaign. Much earlier, before the break, I told you that we had information that it was on the 5th of August 2010 that the election campaign was launched in Côte d'Ivoire. Now, if I understand well, and please tell me whether this is correct, had you been involved in any of the campaigning before that date? Answer, no. No, I wasn't involved in campaigning because, you see, it was after the DNC was appointed and so on and so forth that I ended up going to the West when the campaign season had opened up, and it is then that I cheated death. Now, let us talk about the election campaign.
Quels étaient vos moyens financiers, justement?
Now, what were the financial resources available to you for the purposes of that campaign? Can you tell the court?
Je vous le répète.
Answer. Let me repeat myself. When I left and a supervisor was installed, I went to Dr. Franck Guei, my boss, and reported to him accordingly. He himself promptly called the divisional campaign manager, Minister Gilbert Bleu-Lenné, and told him that he should provide me with everything that amounted to gadgets and campaign items. He then, being my boss, gave me a vehicle. He gave me fuel, and resources to enable me go to the DDC and collect a number of gadgets such as T-shirts and posters, so that I could then proceed to engage in President Laurent Gbagbo's campaign until he came to meet us. Question. Was that enough? Was that sufficient? Answer. Sufficient? Enough? It was okay, because with that, myself and my youth, we were able to move about. We knew the purpose of the campaign. We had the gadgets. We had the T-shirts. Now, for us, the money was to be used for fueling the vehicles and so on and so forth. But what mattered the most was what was being said, the speeches. That was more important than the items that were going to be given to the people, to the population.
Question. Did you have any guards with you? Answer, no. I went in the car with my elements, and I gave resources to others to take transport. I have told you that I was almost burnt alive. If I had guards, that would not have happened. Question. How many people traveled with you? Answer. There were 5 of us in the car, the driver, myself, and 3 of us. The others had taken public transport. There were 10 of us in the bureau. All our actions were centered in Tom Key. So the people that we wanted to reach were already in the field. There were only those certain who did not have resources, students and so on, and we had to help those people to go to the field, because through their presence and their charisma, the parents or relatives would understand the necessity of voting for our champion. Question. And during that election campaign, did you personally have access to President Laurent Gbagbo? Answer, no. No.
Alors, comparativement,
Question. Comparatively to your resources, can you tell us, Mr. Witness, what were the resources of Mr. Charles Blé during that election campaign? Answer. Listen, I cannot tell you what is not true, but I know that as the Deputy National Director of Campaign for 322,000 square kilometers, there is no comparison between those resources and the one for someone in charge of a region only. So I know that he was someone who was a major leader in the campaign. That's all I can say. Question, can you tell us an approximation of those financial resources?
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Alti, thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I'm objecting here because it would have been more appropriate to ask the witness whether he had any way of knowing what were the resources available not only to Mr. Charles Blé but his staff and so on, how he got to know about it and whether the sources were credible. And all these things have to be known before asking that question. The witness has said about 15 times that he didn't have such links. He has said that in answer to questions from the prosecutor, so that question cannot be put directly to him.
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, Mr. President, we gave the prosecution quite... You mind the microphone? Outside court?
Also, depending on what defense counsel is going to say.
Come on, no, it's
The witness
me
is
who
present too.
it's me who gave it the floor. Mr. Knops.
Very briefly, the witness is not an accountant, and the questions are clearly calling for speculation.
Mr. Garcia.
Your Honor, I've asked the question, and then obviously I'm directing the questions to the witness, and I am going to get to the foundation of his knowledge during my questioning. Now, the witness has already responded, given a certain answer. I've asked him a more precise question. If the witness is able to answer that question, he'll answer it.
Do you know anything about the resources Mr. Blé had for the election campaign?
No.
Answer, no.
Mr. Garcia. Excuse me, Mr. Witness. When you say, I know, I'm reading now the transcript at page 70, line 5, from that on, to a question by the prosecutor, you said, listen, I cannot tell you what is not true, but if I know that as the Deputy National Director of campaign for 322,000 square kilometers, there is no comparison between those resources and the ones for someone in charge of a region only. So I know that he was someone who was a major leader in the campaign. That's all I can say. But what do you want? Can you explain this, which I didn't understand, when you make this comparison between a deputy national director of a campaign for 322,000 kilometers, and you compare it with those of one for someone in the region only? What do you mean by this?
Je voudrais dire,
Mr. President, what I want to say is that Mr. Charles Blé Goudé, he was the Deputy National Director in charge of the campaign of candidate Laurent Gbagbo. Since we had 32 regions in Côte d'Ivoire, it means that he was responsible for going to all those regions to mobilize the young people and others to vote for Mr. Laurent Gbagbo in those 322,000 square kilometers. That is the land area of Côte d'Ivoire. And I said that is cannot be compared to someone who is only dealing with the land area of a department. So the difference is major. So if you have to give me 10 euros to go and work in Man, it would have nothing to do with someone who has to work in the entire Côte d'Ivoire. That is what I mean.
I understood it. But do you know, this is a following question, do you know how much a regional a director for a regional campaign, how many resources he had in your region, for example?
le directeur départemental
The departmental director of campaign, to my knowledge, had been placed at his disposal a tank of fuel to make it possible to fuel vehicles to travel to each area assigned to each person. And the team responsible for campaign had to be fed, and the campaign gadgets or items had to be given to each person, and that included T-shirts, pins, caps, posters with the effigy of President Laurent Gbagbo for the entire duration of the campaign, up until the day that the campaign officially stops and then the elections take place.
More a matter of goods than of money, of gadgets, of material goods than of money.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. President, there is money, but I cannot tell you how much. I didn't count the money, and I will explain to you the case in our region. When you went to the rural areas, the remote areas, it was a symbol to be able to speak in our own language to the population, to the chiefs, to the women. You have to provide them drinks. You have to give them symbolic amounts of money. It is our tradition. And that is, it means that we are telling our parents and relatives that we have come to talk to you about our candidate. And these amounts vary depending on the land area of the village, the town, the department, or sub-prefecture. But I cannot actually quantify the budget because I did not have access to information at that level.
Mr. Garcia, please.
Je vais juste revenir en arrière.
Question. I would just like to backtrack a little bit, Mr. Witness. After a supervisor was appointed, what was the nature of your relationship with Mr. Charles Gbagbo as from that time on? Answer, we were distant from each other. We no longer had any contact. And I have said I went back to my point of departure, to square one. That is to my boss. The supervisor, well, it was a period that I can describe of as a period of sabotage. And the supervisor no longer kept me informed. We had the same objective. And I was telling my own people that we have to look at the objective and not interests. Question. You say that you entered into a period of sabotage. Can you explain what you mean by that? Answer. Question. Was there anyone sabotaging you in your election campaign? Answer. Yes. Because in the field, in the West, there were young people who were from COGEP, Mr. Yaké Evariste, for example, who was a friend of Mr. Guei. He had other friends, and they rushed to the field to say Evariste Yaké is not the campaign manager, Charles does not know him, and that the supervisor is Mr. Blay, and that he does not have any resources, do not rely on him. That is what happened. And those things were reported back to me. But what I'm saying is that the most important thing for me was that my mission, I had beaten Pastor Gami in front of everyone, but my mission was what my boss, Franck Guei, had told me, to have our champion win, President Laurent Gbagbo. Question, Mr. Witness, was Mr. Charles Gbagbo in any way connected to the problems that you had in the field? Answer, I no longer had any contact with Mr. Charles Gbagbo. But Mr. Guei and Mr. Yaké Evariste and Mr. Guei was Mr. Charles' henchman, but the other one was the representative of COGEP in the region. Question, Mr. Witness, I will just 00620357 tab 3. I would like to refresh your memory on this issue. Page 0539, line 39, up to line 45. And you say, and I quote, "That is where we stopped. And ever since that time, there was a rift between Charles and myself."
Alors, l'intervieweur dit d'accord.
The interviewer says, "Very well." I think it is now on the screen, and you say, and I quote, "Yes, we did not speak on the telephone any longer. We continued in that way. He tried through Blé Maurice and others to create problems for me. But given my notoriety and given that I was a descendant of the royal family, the reigning family, as they say." Witness, I remember. Question, is that correct? Answer, yes, I remember having said that. I have told you that Mr. Blé and myself were no longer in contact. It was finished, but Mr. Gbagbo Eric, Mr. Blé Maurice, and Mr. Guei. No, it's a
Yes, in English, yeah. Well, we heard some music. Now we are again listening to the witness.
The computer has been switched off. It was a site. And I will continue, Mr. Witness, to refresh your memory. We are still on page 0539, line 65, and I will go up to line 76. Interviewer, but what was he doing to create problems for you? What was he doing exactly? And your answer, and I quote, "No, but no. What is the problem? Give the resources," because he had the resources. He was very powerful financially. Interviewer, yes, yes, line 71, and I quote you, and he was the man, the boss of the National Campaign Directorate appointed by the president. He himself said he is the son of the president. He saw the president when he wanted, and so he gave people resources to try to destabilize me, because money could make it possible for me to divide. But thank God I had a solid team that believed in me, with whom I struggled all the time. They visited all the villages on mission, and they were speaking the truth. That is what you said to the investigators? Answer, yes, indeed. Mr. Blé Maurice was the supervisor. As I have said before, I had received 16 motorbikes, and after leaving the COGEP office where there was a rift, I talked of sabotage, because I'm talking about Guei, Eric, and my uncle Blé Maurice. Three or four times it was said that he was the one who had been chosen by Charles Blé Godet. And when that is said, then you find yourself in a position of financial weakness. But fortunately, and when someone in the field, and as I have told you, I am a descendant of the royal family that rules over 68 villages. I have a mastery of our customs, and all the time in the field, my young people had stood by the truth, and they said that the objective was the victory of our champion. They stood by my side with the little resources that the DDC had given us, and we carried out our campaign. Answer, just to conclude, I understand that what you told the investigators was true. Answer, yes.
Vous avez parlé également.
Question. This morning, I believe you also spoke about Charles Blé Godet and his movement COGEP. Can you tell us, to your knowledge, during that period, who was financing Charles Blé Godet and COGEP? Answer, I do not know. It was not my movement. I had no idea when he called me, so I do not know. Question, Mr. Witness, once again I will refresh your memory, and I'm referring to transcript 0062 0574, and that is in tab 4.
Un instant.
Just one moment.
Et je vais faire référence.
I'm referring to page 0594 and also 0595. So please display 0594 to the witness, and I'll begin on line 708.
Alors, monsieur le témoin, je vais vous lire.
Mr. Witness, I will read it to you. 0594, line 708, interviewer 2, and I quote, are you aware, without talking about COGEP and Blé Godet, and then his COGEP, the resources that he used to attain their objectives? 710, and you yourself, you said this, and I quote, oh, but Blé Godet, I'm telling you that Charles Blé Godet, he is the son of the president, Laurent Gbagbo. Interviewer 2, line 713, you say the president gives the resources. Interviewer, yes, line 715, and I quote you. And then there were the DGs, the major companies such as the port, the DG Marcel Gossio Well, it was the son of the president, so all the personalities knew that he could see the president when he wanted, where he wanted. So everyone, he had the resources, he had an entire group of people, he had the entire army accompanying him. He was the big boss. He was indeed the big boss. Witness, thank you. On this point, if I remember correctly, when the investigators asked me the question, I acknowledged, I said that Charles Blé was the son of the president. Charles Blé saw the president when he wanted, where he wanted. So everyone, he had the resources, he had an entire, he wanted to. The entire Côte d'Ivoire knows that Charles Blé had vehicles, he had security officers. All of Côte d'Ivoire knows that. And I think that when you see these words, he's the son of the president, and all the DGs, I heard that, and I'm telling you, and I mentioned Mr. Maxel Gossio, they were all brothers and friends of President Laurent Gbagbo and his collaborators, and they knew that Charles was the political son of President Gbagbo, who was well loved, and so they supported him. I have told you that he had representatives in my region. He had representatives. I have mentioned Gogon Guillaume, Gbagbo Eric, and others. I heard about that. I never accompanied Charles Blé to Gossio's house or to the president's house. But when these elements were boasting that they had gone with their boss to see a DG, and everybody knew that on the TV, when it came to the youth, when you saw the big boss, Laurent Gbagbo, it went without saying that you would see Charles Blé. Even my boss, Dr. Franck Guei, well, Charles Blé, I can say, saw the president even more often than my boss, Dr. Franck Guei.
Juste une question.
Question. One question. You talked about Marcel Gossio. Who is he and what was he doing at the time? Answer. He was the Director General of the Abidjan Ports Authority.
Vous avez dit les autres. Est-ce qu'il y avait...
You said others. Was there more than one DG that supported him, or was that the only one?
Maître Titre?
Maître Titre. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I would like to draw the court's attention, the chamber's attention, to a nuance that must be respected. My learned colleague has first put a question at the beginning, namely, who was funding Charles Blé and COGEP? Clear question, clear answer from the witness. I know nothing about it. Now, in order to attempt to get another answer from him, he reads out a statement to the witness in which an entirely different question, not that one, had been put to the witness. Let me quote, "Are you aware of the resources they were using?" And now, we are going now into areas of impressions and speculation, which overlapping speakers.
Into the substantive part of what the witness is testifying about, I think would be very cautious, and we'd need to take that caution to have the witness leave while defense counsel makes his pleading on this point if he desires to continue.
Yeah, if you continue, it's better if the witness goes out, but I know where you're going to, because I can read also line 722 and 730 of the statement.
Monsieur le Président, je m'en remets. Oui,
Prt3, I defer to the chamber for its decision in whether to let the witness stay in or leave the courtroom. I have no problem with that.
The witness leave the courtroom for a few minutes. Can you please leave the courtroom accompanied by the court usher? Prt3, although you have the floor, although you made it very clear what your opposition is.
Absolument, Monsieur le Président.
Prt3, absolutely, Mr. President. It's very clear. We moved from a clear question to which a clear answer was given to attempting to sidestep that clear answer by engaging in a matter of speculation. And what can I say? Now, we moved from clarity to an area where we say maybe he received some funds, but we never accompanied him to such and such a place. And then we have another question, which is the purpose of my objection. But in any event, I have lost my thoughts, but let me hop back to previous segment of here we are now, Mr. President, at page 79, line 2. Who was Gosio? Question. He was the director of the Abidjan Ports Authority. Fair and good. But then, remember, I need to slow down for the interpreters, but he never said that he went with Gosio, because that question was never put to him as to where, how, and when he knew that he was given money. There was no foundation laid for that. So we have gone from speculation to the next question, which, after having gotten him to say who Gosio was, then you say, as the prosecutor, from the French transcript, you say the following, at line 4. And I quote, you said others. Was there more than one DG who also supported, or was he the only one? End of quote. Now we have quietly moved to the certainty that there was at least one DG who supported them. So from speculation to speculation, we have gradually moved from impression to certainty. And so we could ask the witness whether there were other DGs who supported or funded Charles Gbagbo. Now, was there any point in time at which the witness said that he had clear information about this? Was he asked to provide any information that can substantiate this kind of assertion? So it's from speculation to speculation. But we end up here from a question, who was funding Charles Gbagbo and COGEP, to which the answer was, I know nothing. And we are getting to a point where, in spite of himself, the witness is now being asked to say whether there were any other DGs who funded the the Charles Blake Goodey, whereas he said that he knew nothing about it to begin with. There's no foundation about who, when, why, and where such a thing may have taken place. If we don't proceed in that manner, I think we have to object. Mr. President, this is why I want to object, and I think it is time for the Chamber to intervene on this matter.
Mr. Knoop?
Mr. President, the court is aware of the content of Directive 41. Yes. Now, there is not an issue about refreshing the witness memory or confronting the witness with a contradiction in the event which is applicable here. The witness, in his statement, the prosecution didn't cite, confirms that he never directly heard from Mr. Blake Goodey how the funding went. That's line 727, 728. So there is no contradiction with his statement to the prosecution and his testimony today. Neither is there reason to refresh the memory because the witness clearly said he has no direct knowledge on the funding. And therefore, I think it's not appropriate to put a statement to the witness, which is, by the way, also a selection of that page, because if you read further in line 740, the witness confirms that he has no direct source, no direct knowledge on the funding. And therefore, the confrontation with the earlier statement in this situation is in contravention with Directive 41.
Well, and I was going to intervene before you intervened because I think if you read 722 and 730, his knowledge is based on what the people are saying on television. So there is no real contradiction in what he said. The knowledge he had at that time was knowledge through television and other people, what he heard. And here he just said he does not know, if not from other sources, of course. Therefore, I think we should really not overstretch the concept of confrontation as opposed to refreshing the memory, because there is nothing to refresh the memory when one says, I don't know. Then it's a matter of confrontation if there is something contradicting what he says here.
John, just to be clear on the matter, I did use the term, obviously, refresh the memory. I could have used the term of confronting the witness. The witness says, it's not
yes,
the first time.
Yes, of course.
The witness says he doesn't know.
No, but
and then there is information.
Yes,
I'm
but
sorry.
one is if the witness doesn't recall, he says, I can't remember, then you refresh the memory. If the witness makes a statement, and this statement is contradicted by what he said before, then it's a matter of confrontation, which is something different.
Gunners, I do take note, obviously, in some occasions I understand that refreshing the memory may be a preliminary step before doing a confrontation, and that was the objective of the exercise. Despite the words that we used, the witness said he didn't remember or he didn't know. This is information that he does know, despite or regardless of the source of that information. That's a matter for the reliability of that information later on. But that's why I confronted the witness with his prior statement, simply for that. And I can, obviously, while the witness is present, I can ask him questions about what he knows, if he knows anything further, and from what possible source.
But now we know we have it on the record. So now we know it, we have it on the record, and then we will use argumentatively what is on the record. So I think it's better to go ahead if you don't want to insist on this for other matters.
Duly noted, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Let the court usher should bring the witness in the courtroom again. I can use it. No, I can't because he's coming. The floor is back to the Office of the Prosecutor, Mr. Garcia.
Alors, Monsieur le témoin, je veux simplement revenir sur...
Question. Mr. Witness, let me revisit part of your answer at page 78, line 24 and 25. And you said, I said, Gbagbo used to see the president because even his boss, Dr. Franck Guei, can you finish off that assertion? What did you want to say? Answer. What I was saying was that it was not Gbagbo's boss, it was my boss. Dr. Franck Guei was my boss, not Gbagbo's. He was the president's special advisor. So what I was saying was that we didn't see him as often because when he was going to see the president, we more or less knew because he would tell us, I have an appointment with the big boss. And what I'm saying is that Gbagbo had more access to the president than my boss. That's what I meant.
Monsieur le Président.
Maître Altit.
Oui, merci.
Maître Altit, thank you, Mr. President. And I'm sorry to rise while my colleague had the floor, but I think, Mr. President, that it would be fair to lay foundations properly and then ask logical questions that lead up to the type of question he has asked. Now, when you say, did Gbagbo see the president often? Answer, yes, but there must be a question before that. Was it possible for you to become aware of this? That is the problem I have, and this is what they're doing all the time. I didn't rise because I was hoping that things would get better, but we've gotten to a point, Mr. President, where I think that the chamber has to intervene. The examination, any examination, must be logical, and we need to respect it. Otherwise, we get the witness to say things that he is not saying. And furthermore, it makes things difficult for the judges and the parties thereafter to come to a clear opinion as to what has transpired in the courtroom. That's all I wanted to say, Mr. President.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes, I'm standing up, Your Honor, because it's a recurring theme for this witness, but also other witnesses. And I'm going to switch in French, actually. Non, nos questions.
No, our questions do not seek to put words into the witness's mouth. And I believe that this is very clear, going by the answers from the witness.
So the point being, Your Honor, is that constantly Mr. Altit is standing up, interrupting our questioning, always stating that there should be a foundation. We are conducting our examination as we see appropriate. There's an opportunity for the defense to ask questions, and they can come back on that. And if there is no foundation to our questions, well, the weight will be low or non-existent. And we will suffer from that in the closing brief. But that's a choice that we make with our burden of proof. So I would kindly request the chamber to reject the objection and to remind Mr. Altit that we conduct our questioning, as we see appropriate, within the boundaries as set up by the directives and the instruments of the court. Thank you.
Well, this objection is rejected because the examination is simple a matter of questions and answers. The matter of laying a foundation is not a legal concept. Laying a foundation, it's a matter of asking simple questions and having answers by the witness on facts. And therefore, because if you lay a foundation, then or if you put a question, any question has a foundation to be laid. So I do not understand the concept. So I just invite the prosecutor to put questions and have answers. And if the witness is able enough to say, I don't know, I can't remember, or to respond in truthfully the way he thinks to respond. Please go ahead.
Alors, Monsieur le témoin, vous nous avez dit...
Question. Mr. Witness, at page 85, you said, lines 5, 6, and 7, but I told you that Charles Gbagbo had access to the president more than my boss. That's it. How do you get to know that how did you get to know that he had more access to the president, more access than your boss, Mr. Franck Guei? Answer. Dr. Franck Guei, my boss, well, I had the luck that we were together, and whenever he had to see the president, he would tell me most of the time. So when I knew that in a month or 2 or 3, I would ask him, have you seen the chief? No, I have not been able to see him. I have asked for an audience. They are going to call me back, but the chief is busy. I'm going to see him at some point because I have to update him on this and that. What do you think about it? Do you think that the number of material is enough? Well, he usually put questions to me to seek my opinion. So from that, I say that it wasn't regular. That is why, in my mind, I came to the conclusion that when there were any political events involving youth and politics, in most of the cases, when the big chief was there, that is when President Laurent Gbagbo was present, Charles Gbagbo would be there. That's it.
D'accord, merci, Monsieur le témoin.
Question. Very well, thank you, Mr. Witness.
Monsieur le témoin, à votre souvenir, est-ce qu'il y avait des plaintes dans...
Question. As far as you can recall, was there any complaining around and about? Were people complaining about matters of distributing money for the election campaign?
Ne saisis pas bien.
Answer. I have not understood your question. Please. Question. As far as you know, did you become aware at any time that people were complaining around Mr. Charles Gbagbo about the distribution of money for the election campaign?
Écoutez, j'ai entendu, mais je peux.
Answer. I heard some things, but I couldn't cross-check. I couldn't verify because I was somewhat distant from him. Question, what you heard was in relation to who? Answer, in relation to other leaders. I've already told you that if I'm not mistaken, the youth of the JFPI, President Laurent Gbagbo's party, our champion, those youth did not appreciate, and I heard that, they didn't appreciate the choice of Charles by the president. They didn't, that's something I heard. And I didn't cross-check, but I can tell you that I heard, I wasn't there, and that the youth were beginning to feel somewhat cheated.
Et lorsque vous mentionnez d'autres leaders,
Question, when you talk about other leaders of JFPI youth, who are you referring to? Well, obviously GFPI had people like Damaja Picas, there was Konate Navigué, that was the JFPI, that's President Laurent Gbagbo's party, JFPI.
est-ce qu'on apprend un peu plus sur la...
Question, can you say a little more whether there were any complaints about money? Answer, no, I don't have any recollection of that. Question, I will try to jog your memory on this specific point.
Faire référence.
And I refer here to tab 3, CIVOTP 0062000537.
05.
At page 0550.
Et je vais débuter à la ligne 400.
I'll start at line 439.
Alors, je vois que c'est déjà affiché devant vous.
I see the document is already displayed for you. Line 443, and you were speaking. I quote, I remember there was a meeting at Man where Kwa Justine, the one who is there today, they came to Man. I was the one who went to see the minister. Kwa Justin came with Gaudet Alain. The Fédéral de Jeunesse, Gaudet Alain, was the one who brought him. I am the one who went to see the minister, Bleu Lenné. They were at the hotel. They did not even have, there was no way of asking for 100,000. And the minister gave me some money, and I came, and I gave them 100,000 francs CFA. Interviewer number 1. Navigué, Konate, and Kwa Justin, what were they complaining about? They were complaining that they, and you yourself, well, interviewer number 1, all resources had been given, and then you to Blay. Interviewer 1 to Blay, and then you said we. Yes. Interviewer number 1, yes, he did not distribute that to them for them to also carry out the campaign. And then you, yes, that's it. Interviewer number 1, what was the issue about? Oh, they would also like to eat some money. What was that about? You yourself, well, it's a question, well, in any event, in any event, we must call a cat. Quote, you cannot run a campaign without eating. Interviewer number 2, then you yourself, well, at least. Interviewer 1, so they were complaining that all the money was instead going to person interviewed, that is yourself. Yes, he was the one managing. Interviewer 1, Toublé, who was the director of, and then you, I quote, yeah, there you have it. He only gave it to his friends and to those who were in his network.
Je vous remercie.
Answer, yes, thank you. I do effectively recall that my younger brother, Kwa Justin, member of the JFPI Bureau, and the young brother, Gaudet Alain, who was the federal of the GFPI as well, we were together in Mans. When Kwa Justin and Alain Gaudet conducted a mobilization visit, they came and met me in Mans. The young brother, a small brother, Kao, called on me at the hotel when they were in Mans. And I told them, well, you see, you cannot come on a mission all three of you of the president's party, and you tell me that you don't have money. So he said, no, we don't have money. It is Blé who had all the money. He was the one managing all the money. Now, so I said, well, the GFPI, isn't it all of you working together? And I said, no. And they said, no, we know nothing about it. We came together, but we don't have any money. So I said, okay, remain in the hotel. I will see what I can do. Since you have come here for the same purpose, that is for the campaign of Mr. Laurent Gbagbo, I will do whatever I can to see the DDC, since my boss was not present, and I will convey your concerns to him. So I went to the DDC, the minister, and I told them that some JFPI youth leaders had come to galvanize the people, and that they were having a little bit of a problem and needed some support. And so Minister Gilbert Bleu Launay gave me 100,000 francs, which I took back to them, and I handed it over to them. They were extremely happy to receive that kind of money.
Alors, vous avez également dit
You also told the investigators that he gave it only to his friends and to all those who were in his network. As far as you know, what did that network refer to? His network, what did that refer to? The network was members of COGEP, of his movement, his friends, the friends with whom he was frequently with, people whom he had known for a very long time. Question, who were those friends whom he had known for a very long time? Answer, he had his friends. Awas Talon was one of them. I can also mention Jean-Yves Dipopieux. I can also talk about Annie Chele. I can also mention Eli Alassou, and there was also Idriss Ouattara, Oh yeah. Those are his friends. Some of them.
Your Honor, thank you.
We break here. One question is obviously to the prosecutor, how much time he will need to conclude his examination, his questioning of this witness.
Your Honor, I will, just to preface that, my answer, I will work tonight, obviously, to narrow the line of questionings for tomorrow, given that we have some time, and I will be completing my examination in chief in the first session tomorrow morning.
Okay, so the defense of Mr. Blégaudet, which I think is the one questioning first, as I learned, is advised to start immediately. And, therefore the hearing is concluded for today, and we adjourned to tomorrow morning at 9:30. Thank you very much.
All rise.
To tomorrow morning at 9:30. Thank you very much.
All rise.